Welcome to State of Consciousness Podcast with your hosts Gabriela Fernandez and Ryu, along with various other community collaborators, who will take you on a journey to explore through their individual offerings and services how they are contributing to the greater shift on the planet. If you are interested in how you can both experience and become a part of this energy, sit back and give a listen, as we are all one.
Welcome back to the State of Consciousness podcast. This is episode 10 with Bodhi. We are so excited to bring you this episode. Bodhi is a passionate forest gardener, herbalist, naturalist, and educator. He regularly teaches on topics such as foraging, botany, permaculture, and more. He also helps manage Forested, which is a regenerative food forest farm and education center in Bowie, Maryland. With a bachelor's degree in environmental science and engineering, multiple technical certifications, and a decade of working with the land under his belt, Bodhi applies the skills and knowledge he has acquired toward his service to life on Earth. He strives to be a steward, uplift consciousness, and leave a loving footprint on the Earth. Bodhi's mission is to help people connect more deeply to themselves and the natural world around them with the hope of ushering in a more beautiful and harmonious world for all.
And yeah, we are really thrilled to have him, and I think just having some sense of his bio, you're going to experience his heart-centered, compassionate energy, and as well as his very old soul, and just feel the frequency and vibration of the conversation. So we are truly blessed to have um, Bodhi on our podcast and enjoy. Just enjoy.
All right, so welcome, Bodhi, to the State of Consciousness podcast. We are so excited to have you here tonight. And so we're just going to jump right in and ask you if you can share a little bit about yourself and the work you're doing in the community and how you got started with all of that.
Thank you, Gabby. It's so good to be here. Yeah, well, I think my journey working with the earth and collaborating with community to, I guess, help people discover themselves and connect to the world around them more deeply. I think it really began when I was a child because I always loved being in the forest, loved making bows and arrows and climbing trees. So I feel like the roots of it began then. But as I became an adult, I began to pursue environmental science and ecology. And when I was young, I felt this kind of sense that there was something that I was missing in the forest. Like I would be there and I would feel like there was this magical piece that I couldn't perceive. And yeah, for a long time, it felt like something was eluding me. And then later on, I realized that everything is magical that's happening in the forest, that's happening within us. Even, what is memory, cognition, sight, sound, the fact that we can do any of this is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So the magical quality and piece that I was looking for was right there. It was right there in front of me. But I felt I was in my mind. I was kind of separating myself from, and from the world around me, and kind of thinking that it had to look like a certain way, like with magical creatures.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I fell completely in love with the natural world when I was, into it as a teenager and then into young adulthood. And I started doing all kinds of hiking trips, camping trips, backpacking trips. And I would spend every weekend, going and exploring a new natural space. And then I was studying environmental science and sustainability, and even focusing into regenerative agriculture when I was in college. I went to James Madison University and was in the, it's called ISAT,
Mm-hmm.
Integrated Science and Sustainability. Um, yeah, so that program was really transformative for me because there were some professors in there that were, you know, on the cutting edge of these fields of, sustainability, and their their perspective on these issues was really, progressive and really mind opening for me
Mm-hmm.
and inspiring for me. So I started to, yeah, cultivate this deep love for, yeah, working with the land, um, with my hands, with, yeah, collaborating with different farmers and different gardeners, and helping to, yeah, so I guess strengthen the kind of food system, and
Mm-hmm.
just dip my toe into all these different types of farm systems and learn about, you know, permaculture, biodynamics, organic farming, vegetables, animals. And I spent the next 5 to 6 to 7. I guess I've been doing it now all through my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So I've spent all of my 20s so far, and now I'm 30,
Mm-hmm.
uh, working in different farm systems, from large scale, organic farms to, yeah, completely hand cultivated biodynamic farms with animals that are being rotated. Um, and then I transitioned into a more urban, educational focused kind of environment when I came to back to DC.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working, I actually spent a year working at the Washington Youth Garden in the National
Oh, okay.
Arboretum. Have you guys heard of the National Arboretum?
Mm-hmm.
I love it
Yes,
there.
I worked there for a year, which was really cool. They have a 1.5 acre, very intensively managed food forest garden.
Mm-hmm.
And the year that I was there, over 4,000 kids came through. I was the garden manager, and there's fruit trees, there's mushroom logs, there's pollinator pollinator gardens, um, you know, tons of vegetables, and we were donating all the food, teaching kids every week, as well as teachers about, you know, gardening, working with the earth,
Mm-hmm.
herbalism, nutrition, and then also, yeah, offering programs to teach teachers how to incorporate these things into their
Mm-hmm.
curriculum. And we were, the organization still does this, but I was helping them manage different school gardens offsite. And then I spent a couple years working at different urban farms because, unfortunately, in the farming world, most jobs, unless you're like most jobs aren't salaried. In the
Mm-hmm.
farming world, a lot of them unfortunately end in the fall. They start in like March, you know, and then they kind of end, and you have to like reapply. So
Mm-hmm.
that's an unfortunate reality of the many of the jobs I've had, which is why I had to work so many
Mm-hmm.
different places.
Mm-hmm.
But it has also catered to my personality because I do kind of like to experience different things, and
Mm-hmm.
never really found a system that felt completely right for me to be there full for years and years anyway.
Right.
And anyway, so I spent a few years working in this urban kind of focused urban farming environment, and I worked at Common Good City Farm
Oh,
in
yeah.
yeah, Common Good City Farm in Bloomingdale, right near
Mm-hmm.
Howard University.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a pretty amazing organization. They do a lot of education of the community and of kids programs, and every Wednesday we were giving out free food that was grown right there, plus subsidizing with other local produce.
Right.
But that was a crazy year to work there because I was actually working there during the pandemic.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so there was people, dying all around in the subsidized housing
Oh, geez.
of, you know, of COVID and other
Mm-hmm.
conditions, other chronic health conditions. And it's this really interesting living example of like the gentrification, because there's like, these communities that have been there for decades, and there's like the newer, more nicer, more expensive housing like bumping up against each other right in that
Mm-hmm.
little area. So there was also, it was a really interesting environment because I really got to see um, like what an urban, truly urban farm looks like.
Yeah.
It was cool. It was cool. It was also really challenging. There was even gunshots oftentimes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
a lot of times folks don't, they don't have an awareness of like really what goes on in those areas. We've taken some folks down there right into the city of Wilmington, and there are gardens that the coalition oversees where, we're out there, for an event, and there's people, with guns and everything out right out there in the perimeter. That's the reality, and to be able to have that experience and understand all those different dimensions of the world, that's pretty incredible that you've had the opportunity to have that exposure. Because I'm sitting here listening to you thinking how impressive the exposure and the experience that you've had. And this one of the reasons I was so interested to have you on, because you're a representation of a lot of folks that, like, you came into this world with this knowingness and this connection and maybe not having it defined, but you just kind of um you ended up just sitting in that space and allowing it to come to fruition even more and more. Whereas, I came from that baby boomer Gen X scenario, and I went through around the river and through the woods, and I finally have gotten into the place that I believe I'm supposed to be in. But you've just like been in it, and it is such a wonderful thing. And I think that's all very intentional also, because I feel that you are the ones that are going to pull the world forward, but to hear that depth of which you've been exposed to already, and how you're so connected. And I like how you describe this aspect of, is like you knew that there was something, what was that something, what did we call that? People call it all different types of things. What is that connection, and then to understand where it was where it was emanating from, and how to just um nurture it, right? Some folks feel it and they're like, oh, what is this? And they have no clue, right? But to know that you needed to nurture it and to recognize it and just allow it to continue to grow and evolve. That's so cool for me to hear. I'm
right,
really.
right. Spirituality was ultimately what took me down this path. I got
Hmm.
into meditation and yoga and Eastern philosophy and different types of spiritual practices.
Hmm.
And when I was 18, 19 years old, I just, followed my heart and was brought to this amazing community. We had elder mentors, the elder women, yeah, women that had been spiritual mentors for decades and that had been following a spiritual path and working with people. And they just, from the kindness of their heart, like, one of my mentors had circles every single Sunday for free at their house. And we would meditate, we would learn about, we would read different spiritual texts and discuss them. We would, chant a lot of mantras and different sacred songs. And so I really devoted myself to the spirituality simultaneously while um, connecting to farming and gardening and ecology. And um, that was really what pushed me even deeper into the world of, like, I found the embodiment of the spiritual, principles and things that I was learning and discovering
Hmm.
in the act of stewarding the earth, right? It's like
Hmm.
this embodied spiritual practice. And
Yeah.
I did spend a lot of time like pursuing these went on spiritual retreats, like these intensive spiritual experiences. Like I did a 10-day silent Vipassana meditation sit. Um, I've spent a number of, I've been to my spiritual teacher's ashram in the Pyrenees Mountains a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
Go there and just, yeah, be really focused with the spiritual practice there for, yeah, for a couple of visits. Plus I did a, this is cliche, but I went to India for 3 months, and
Okay.
uh, yeah, I did spend, it was a very much a spiritually focused, devoted trip.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I pursued all these spiritual practices and experiences, and had these experiences that I can't explain, of feeling, you know, the innate oneness and divinity of all things, and the complete inter interbeingness, interconnectedness, you
Mm-hmm.
know, um, the fearlessness of that place and that reality and that loving state.
Mm-hmm.
And these things all propelled me into the work that I do,
Mm-hmm.
which is, yeah, the embodied connection to the earth and to
Mm-hmm.
nature. Um, Interwoven with all of these principles and philosophies, and many of them, of course, like, are just the way that the indigenous people steward the land.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and which is, and all of our ancestors have these same philosophies and principles at their, we trace it back far enough, at their
Mm-hmm.
root. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I was in the urban farming world, like I was saying, for a while, and then I helped start this fruit and nut tree focused and medicinal herb nursery and farm called Plant Path Nursery. And
Mm-hmm.
we had educational courses, permaculture design courses, um, workshops, you know collaborating with different partners to install and plant these different orchards. And yeah, we were planting, and they still are planting, yeah, I'm sure tens of thousands of seeds per year of these
Mm-hmm.
amazing plants, like chestnuts, hickories, pecans, persimmons, pawpaw, you know.
Yeah, I think Eric sent me. Oh, this was sad, Bodhi. I have to tell you about this. I wanted to try to focus on getting some nut trees started last year. So Zach Evers gave me about 250 nut seeds of, anywhere from chestnuts to shagbark, hickories, bunch of those. And then Eric sent me another 100 or so chestnut seeds, right? So, I had them, I put them in the ground in certain areas to let them go through their natural stratification. And I was so excited because, of course, in the springtime, I had all these little seedlings that popped up. So, you know, pulled the seedlings out of the ground and potted them up. And, I was putting up all these videos about how we successfully grew these are all these different nut trees for the first time. I had them all like sitting outside of our um of our greenhouse. I never stopped to think, right, in all of my excitement, that the squirrels were going to go inside the pots and pull the pull the whole thing out. So I came out like the next day after I had worked all day to pot, like I probably had like at least like 75 plants that I had potted. And I come out there, right? And these, all of them, you could see where they were had like dragged, trapped. I
Oh geez.
I just stood there like, can't believe this has happened. I was totally, totally devastated, right? But then after I went through my devastation, I was like, you know what? You could have just put those inside the greenhouse. So that was my experience last year, that I did successfully, grow these things. Um, and interestingly enough, the other part about this is both Eric and Zach said, look, when you plant these, make sure you protect them very well. We would suggest that you might put like a wire, like that wire fencing over top. I did everything they told me to do. It was perfect, right? The whole area I had to put the wire fencing over. I put mulched leaves over top of it. And the other thing was there were still some seedlings that were coming up out of the ground, which I had not had an opportunity to pot. Well, they got those too. Because I had pulled up all of the wire fencing, you know.
Yeah.
So I put a lot of effort into that, and I did what they suggested, and I was really excited, but through my excitement, I didn't really think about the fact that the squirrels were just waiting for me to be done.
There's lots of strong lessons
Yeah.
in learning in all these in learning all these skills and
Hmm.
cultivating, with the earth.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mistakes and
Yeah.
a lot of learning curve. And but the earth, fortunately, is so generous and so
Yes.
forgiving.
Yes.
She just she's like, it's okay. Thanks for trying.
Thanks
Try
for trying. Try again
keep
next
trying.
year.
Yeah. No. So I'm just gonna wrap up my quickly here what I was get to where I'm at now, right? Which is,
Uh-huh.
I've been offering these workshops and foraging walks, and
We were seeing a lot of those. We try to get them out as much as possible on
thank you.
our platform.
Yeah, and propagation workshops and grafting workshops, and I've even taught at a number of 3 different universities now. I did a day long, this awesome workshop at Shepherd University in Maryland at their teaching farm, and UMD did a
Hmm.
walk there, and George GW George Washington did this
Okay.
acorn cooking demo and panel discussion with a few other awesome local people. Uh,
Hmm.
and yeah, so I've a lot of a big part of my work is also intersecting with different issues in our world. Like, I like to stay in the loop with what's happening,
Hmm.
to some degree in current events, and I I feel like this kind of intersectional, environmentalism with social justice and
Hmm.
you know community organizing and also uplifting consciousness
Hmm.
and helping people connect more deeply to their hearts, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
also interwoven, and also even showing up as a human to participate in our system,
Hmm.
I think,
Hmm.
so yeah, it's all interwoven, I feel like, with the way that what I want to offer.
Hmm. Hmm. I'm curious. Are you do you have any siblings, or are you the only child?
I have 2 younger brothers.
Okay. And is this like connection to nature and things? Was that something that was within your environment growing up? Like, eh, are your parents, are they involved in that, or is this just Bodhi's soul coming forth in this incarnation at this time?
I I didn't grow up with any like spiritual orientation. They actually totally didn't, encourage us or push us into any direction in that regard. They didn't. It was really also, my parents got divorced when I was 5, and
Hmm.
but they both did an amazing job putting aside their differences, and you know, we've all been like celebrating holidays and birthdays and, you know, all the
Mm-hmm.
things together now, basically since they split up. So it's always been a very
Mm-hmm.
cohesive dynamic. But that being said, you know, still having divorced parents, like the power structures in the house and stuff like that, like
Mm-hmm.
the way that they relate to you and you know, is different because they both kind of nobody wants to be like they don't want to be like the mean
Right.
parent, you know.
Right.
So I
Right.
feel like I had my own unique relationship with each of them, but none of them were none of their personalities are really like to force anything. So and I
Mm-hmm.
was very stubborn, very determined to do my own thing and forge my own path. And no
Mm-hmm.
matter what they said, I was going to do it. I was going to do what felt right to me anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But they were very supportive of that. And like, so instead of, you know, that being an issue, it wasn't. It was actually like, oh, great.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And yeah, then I guess me feeling, yeah, the security of that and having explored that, I also, you know, exercised that same kind of curious, heart-centered, you know, listening and following in what took me to, yeah, connecting with my first, you know, spiritual community where I was living in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia and then working with the earth.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, yeah, it really just kind of emerged from me following my heart and my gut.
Mm-hmm. The soul walk.
Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
suppose so.
Mm-hmm. The old soul emerges. The old soul emerges. That's kind of what I'm hearing and seeing. Yeah. Well, I guess in many ways I'm not surprised to hear all this as part of your journey, but it's just like really such a breath of fresh air. And Gabby, you need to just jump in when you need to, because I can just ask so many questions here. I'm like, I'm beaming right now after listening to all of this. But so you've done all this, and how are you reflecting like in this world of where we are right now, and where do you see your role being like so valuable in this journey, or this intersection, which I think is a very heightened one. People will say, talk about the ascension. Of course, our center focuses on a lot of supporting people through this ascension journey and this great turning, if you will, and helping to. Uh, I already believe that our consciousness it already exists at an elevated state. It's just us becoming aware of that. Um, but and I think you alluded to it in many ways already, but what's your what's your vision of of where this world is going right now? And um you have all these gifts and things like that. What do you think your main purpose and contribution is in this space going forward?
Hmm.
I know I like wrapped up. You see how I wrapped up like about 10 questions in one?
That's a skill. That's a good skill right there.
It's like, go ahead, pick any of them. It's resonating with you.
Well, I guess without sounding this sounds weird to voice this in this environment, but I suppose I will anyways. That I do want to continue to grow and be a person who is supporting, um, you know, this coming together and realizing our interconnectedness, our interbeingness,
Hmm.
um, helping people connect to the fundamental, foundational, important things like
Hmm.
the land, like food, like you know, our hearts, like each other, like community. I'm really inspired by, yeah, by people that weave together these threads of, you know, philosophy, science,
Mm-hmm.
spirituality, um, you know, and offer forth like this beautiful vision and beautiful alternative story of what's happening and of the world and how, you know, how we can live. And I'm inspired by those people. I want to be that, do
Mm-hmm.
that as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel I feel very humble. You know, the imposter syndrome is a real
I'm
thing.
seeing it. I'm seeing it.
Um,
The
you
people
know,
who suffer from the imposter syndrome really recognize that really easily with other folks.
you know, so I try to stay humble also as much as possible because I feel like it is one of the most important things. And I'm open to. I always pray for, you know, to for strength, for
Mhm,
wisdom, clarity,
mhm,
compassion,
mhm,
fearlessness, and I pray to serve in the highest,
mhm.
in the highest that you know I can, and to be guided. Um, and I don't know what form that will take. Honestly, I really have no idea. But I've been
Yeah.
praying for that for like 10
Mhm,
years.
mhm, mhm,
Um, and that prayer, I really think, in many ways, has brought me here.
mhm,
Um, so I'm just listening. I think it's really about listening, and trying to not project too much expectation, perhaps, or anticipation, but just, you know, nurture the visions that feel organic, but then
mhm.
also allow for the unfolding and um, you know, to be listening in real time to what the feedback I'm getting from my heart, from life, yeah, from others,
There's
helping
a there's a
guide me.
bigness about your soul, Bodhi, that it's bringing tears, right? Because it's authentic and it's purposeful and it's intentional, and you have already a deep sense of inner knowing about that. Um, and it's just and this is why it's such a gift to have you on this podcast, because I think you are such an example of, yeah, this is there's a lot of you out there. There's a lot of all of us that are out there right now. And for people to be able to hear that story, hear that journey, feel that vibration, that authenticity, that purposefulness, that connection, that, the spiritual references that have been taken out intentionally along the way and separated us, right, from who we are. Um, it's um, it's what people need to hear. And I think that one thing that you said about being open to listening and observing, like in my journey, um, I had to come back into that again. But to hear somebody like you say that and it be so pronounced and embedded in who you are, that gives me, I exist with a super hopeful and purposeful way of being. But when I hear that being reflected back to me, it's just like, yes, you know,
Mm.
like, yes, and this is all you're very intentional, right? You carry a lot of deep wisdom within you that you not even tapped into yet, right? A lot of very deep, powerful wisdom of remembering, re-remembering. And I'm just so glad to have, and it's not happenstance, because soul clusters are meeting left and right? So I'm just so glad to be sitting here with you right now. And I'm so glad that you're having an opportunity to share, your energy and who you are and the hopefulness that is there in the world right now. It's pretty powerful, and
Mm.
I tend to be so energetically sensitive, so I'm feeling the frequency of this conversation more so than anything that's being spoken right now. And there is a purity about it, that, like I said, it's joyful tears.
Mm.
I'm not going to start doing the baby quivering of the lip and everything, but I can tell you that it's there.
Well, I would like to add too that the same way that you feel inspired by, your mentors and everyone that's taught you along your path, I can definitely say that you are definitely inspiring others as well. You're already definitely fulfilling your mission. And I remember even from the PDC, just from taking the course with you, whether it was the questions you asked or the experiences you shared, it added to my experience tremendously and inspired me to think deeper and to ask these questions too. And so I'm curious too to ask if you remember the time when um, the shift happened between learning and wanting to teach others. Was there a moment, any circumstance, or any, epiphany or anything that you had where you were taking everything in and then wanted to turn it around and share it back out to the world?
Mm. Yeah, I feel naturally inclined to teaching. Maybe I like to hear myself talk too much, but I like to listen a lot too. But I do feel like I have a natural inclination or propensity towards sharing
Mhm.
and teaching and sharing in that way. I think I started teaching first actually as a substitute teacher. I was a substitute
Okay.
teacher for the public school system.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in Arlington County, Virginia. And I was also, or was that? No, actually, even before that, my first teaching was when I was teaching and designing my own Spanish lessons. I speak
Mhm.
Spanish.
Mhm.
So I was actually teaching people, yeah, Spanish grammar, conversation. Um,
How about
and
that?
then, yeah, it was fun. It was cool. It
Like,
was,
Bodie, you haven't been living long enough in a human form to have done all the things that you're doing. You do understand that, don't you? This is what we refer to as a multidimensional being. This is where human beings are supposed to come into this understanding that they are not one dimensional, right? We walk around in these human suits, right? And we've had all this social engineering and everything and shut down through all of these ecosystems, but part of this awakening and this ascension is us coming into this understanding that we're multidimensional. But
mm,
you really are very much ahead of your time, sir.
appreciate that. It's nice to hear. Thank you. Appreciate that coming from a wise soul like you. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean it, and like I said, the compassion, that you hold in your heart space, it's very real. I can feel it, you know, and it, and this another reason why I was so looking forward to being just face to face with you, because I would grab a hold of your information and I could see just in the things that you were sharing for your courses and things, everything that's translating through our conversation was just translating in all the things that you've been sharing, that we've been sharing with other folks. We've had a lot of folks within this more immediate community that would reach out to me and say, "Oh, we wish we were closer to Bodhi because we really want to go on some of his walks and everything." I'm like,
Oh,
"Well, woo woo, he's going to be part of our PDC." Right? So, and then we had a lot of folks who couldn't necessarily carve out the time to be in the full PDC, who had asked us about going on the experientials, and that's when I had reached out to you all to say, hey, what do you think about the idea of opening that up, so that people can come and experience some of these individual things. And so I was glad to see the feedback, but I think that's going to be wonderful for folks too. And it's just, again, is like an opportunity for people to touch your energy, and get that exchange. And
Man, how I feel is like
mhm,
I feel blessed to teach among all of you all. Like that's how I
mhm.
feel. Like, I'm looking at the lineup of teachers and all you guys, and I'm like, wow, I'm so grateful to be included,
Yeah,
So
but you're just as much of the Buddha, right? Let me just say,
then everyone, right?
even more so, right? Because some of us, like I said, we kind of had to go around the river, through the woods, back to grandmom's house, and ba da da, but you came right out of the woods kicking, right? And, and you're just getting started.
You know,
So,
I had one of my teachers, I used to always, there's this concept of enlightenment, right? And
mm-hmm,
I think in many ways, it's helpful because it plants this seed, it nurtures this seed and this sense, right? That there is a way of perceiving and being and living
mm-hmm,
and moving through life and through the world that is, in alignment with divinity, with beauty, with grace, and this shedding away of, yeah, that which obstructs us, right? But many people, but enlightenment is also this really confusing thing
mm-hmm,
because it many people think that's a thing we have to achieve
mm-hmm,
or arrive at.
mm-hmm,
That's actually very misleading, I
mm-hmm,
think. So it's both helpful in that it maybe sparks the journey, or it sparks the fire, or it
mm-hmm,
can, yeah, plant the seed that
yeah,
maybe help it grow initially. But
right.
ultimately, and I went on another retreat, and one of my teachers, actually Jonathan Faust, he's a DC guy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Yeah, he we had this small little, it was a silent retreat, but we had this little breakout group with me and two other people, two or three others, and we got to ask him a question. And I asked him about enlightenment,
mm-hmm.
and I'll never forget his answer because it's just so valuable. Um, you know, I was, hoping for something that
Mm,
gave it more clarity, right?
right.
And he just said, "Oh, I stopped thinking about enlightenment a long time ago. I stopped worrying about that, and I think
Mm-hmm,
that has served me greatly. I think that's
mm-hmm,
you might try doing the same."
mm-hmm,
You know?
mm-hmm,
And I
mm-hmm.
did, and like really took that to heart.
Yeah. I mean,
And
there's a lot in that answer.
yeah, because we think that it's adding things, or it's
Mm-hmm,
things that are external to us that have to
right.
be achieved or experienced or
Mm-hmm,
whatever, that
mm-hmm,
then, reveal
mm-hmm,
this illuminated nature. But it's actually just the true essence and the true reality of all things, all beings, all of
right.
creation, right?
Yeah.
And so it's really more of just a stripping away. It's a
Mm-hmm,
releasing of concepts and identities, and um, yeah, these mental frameworks that we limit ourselves with.
mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Yeah, and I think, as we continue to kind of peel back the layers and allow ourselves to go through this unveiling to see who we truly are, that's already there, as you so elegantly alluded to, because all of our systems always suggest to us that, there's some level of sacrifice of becoming, you know but the idea is that we already are. We just have to be able to see it. Um, as we're coming into this extreme awareness and these veils are being totally tossed away. What kind of wisdom would you share with people as they're making their journey along these paths? I mean, you have really been blessed to come into this incarnation or this world or this experience with so much wisdom that was you were extremely connected to, right? And there are people, of course, at different stages of their journeys, and they're having uh, some experiences that sometimes generate a lot of fear, um, because they may not have as deep understanding. Or, I sat with one of my colleagues over at the school today, and he had made this comment to me that, you know, um, we're just kind of at a point where we're at a point of no return. And, I've got a huge car that's like a gas guzzler, and I've got, a couple motorcycles uh, in my, in my garage. And, I do teach my kids how to recycle and everything. He said, but that's just kind of going through the motion. And while he was saying all this stuff to me, I just sat there and listened to him. I just looked at him, and he goes, "How come you're not saying anything? You 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 obviously don't agree with me." I said, "Well, it's really not up to me to agree or disagree. That's obviously where you are. What your experience is and what your position is. The only thing I can really do is be a demonstration of whatever it is that I hold profoundly." And it just kind of turned him sideways. He was like, "Well, wait a minute. You need to engage with me, and we need to be, you know, debating this subject in some way, because you have to make me feel good about the reason why I have this perspective." you know. But you have people who are on uh different experiences within their journey. And what I heard you say is this idea of you wanting to be a demonstration and continuing to grow and share and things like that. Um, what wisdom do you have to further offer? As this world shifts and changes and flushes and transforms, because it is transforming.
Hmm.
That's about five questions wrapped up into one again.
You have a
hmm
gift for this. Well, the one of the things that comes to mind is yeah, be really gentle on yourself.
Yeah.
Um, People, it's enough stressful, challenging things going on in the world, and you know the realities of living in the modern age are very hard, even in our so-called developed world country, right? People are struggling to pay bills,
hmm
pay rent, raise kids,
Yeah.
um, let alone find a livelihood that is in alignment with your passions and with a sense of serving a higher purpose. Like, how could most people are just trying to really get by.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the world being what it is, with full of beauty, of course, and grace and love and all of the peace and all those things as well. Yeah, practice a lot of. I would encourage people to practice um, gentleness towards themselves, and yeah, if you notice yourself being critical, really self-critical, or really harsh on yourself, or yeah, belittling or demeaning yourself, and you're stuck in that cycle, I would say, try to practice speaking beautiful things to yourself, and also intervene in that cycle of self-negation, uh, and recognize that you are whole, you are beautiful and perfect just as you are. Um, There's no way to deviate from the path. It's always, every step you take is taking you closer to where, you're supposed to be. I really believe that. Um, yeah, and sometimes it's easy to feel lost and like there's no directions, nothing, driving us forward, nothing motivating us to go on. And I feel like we have to, practice a lot of self-love and gentleness, and just recognize that we're not actually lost. We are just on a journey of discovering, and wherever you are is perfect.
That's
I
beautiful.
think the breath is a really important way to kind of manage our nervous system. So getting in touch with the breath, right? Through deep breathing and intentional breathing, making a habit of that really helps us to be more present, to be more in the moment, more able to listen and able to respond and receive and be in this reciprocity with life and with nature. So yeah, having a regulated nervous system goes a long way.
It does. And there are a lot of people who are going to benefit from what you're saying right now.
These
Yeah.
basic things go a long way.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's the most important place to start. If we want to be stewards in the world and help others, we have to start with ourselves for sure.
Mm.
Yeah. I would love to know if you have any practices in nature or any plant allies as well that help you with these kinds of nervous system regulation. I know you said the breath work, that's key, that's huge. Are there any herbs or plant allies that you also turn to when you need a little guidance?
I know you're really on it with your good, structured practices with your meditation and your movement and your supplementing. So I have always admired that in you. I do my best to have to do a daily meditation practice to as that be one of the first things that I do with my day, even if it's just 10 minutes, 10 minutes of intentional breathing, focusing on presence, being in the moment, the body, the feeling of the air moving through my nostrils, you know. And then I like to do a lot of movement, um, yoga, sometimes qigong. I love exercising, working out, and I just think staying, fluid and moving, and um, these things are really crucial for me, and I think everyone would benefit from having some sort of movement practice, right? And I do lean into the plant allies for sure. I I could be a little bit better about being a better consistent supplementer. I make so much herbal medicine, which is so funny. I always have, I'm just surrounded by medicine, and yet like sometimes I'm even bad about taking it.
I think that's true for all of us who are. It's so funny that you're saying that because I was just thinking that the other day. I, I give a lot of things away as well, and I'm like, wait a minute, I gave away my last bottle of this. I didn't even keep something for myself, right? Because I was like looking for something, and then I thought I just gave that away to somebody. So yeah, I get it.
Yes, it's a thing. It's a phenomenon.
Mhm.
And on top of all of that, I think just sleep and all these things are really crucial. And I'm really an advocate of being healthy and feeling good in my body. Um, and I'm pretty on top of it with things like sleep, hydration, eating well, movement, exercise, and yeah, supplementing with the things when I'm good about it. Um, I actually got knee surgery. I got ACL reconstruction surgery in
I
my
thought I
right
saw
knee.
something. You mentioned something about that. How did that
Yeah,
go?
yeah, that was nearly 5 months ago at this point.
Mhm.
In September that I got the surgery, it was July that I got the injury, And, 4.5, 5 months later, I'm doing farm work. I work at Forested. So,
Okay.
I've been pruning trees. I was just out at this public garden in Hyattsville today, finishing pruning up the hardy kiwi and the pomegranates and the pears and
Oh, wow.
the Yaupon hollies. And we were installing these literally, 10 to 15 foot long logs, literally oak logs, as living kind of live edge benches at this
Oh,
school
wow.
garden site the other week. Um, so that all being said, I've come a long way in my
Mhm.
functionality. When I first got the surgery, I couldn't even walk. You know,
Oh, yeah, well, that's a pretty big surgery, you
it
know.
was, and now I'm fully back at it. I'm, you know, doing some light lifting and all the movement practices and yoga and plus, yeah, the farm, the work I like to do.
Mm-hmm.
I really get fueled by being outside, pruning trees, planting, harvesting, weeding, mulching, just all the things that go building, all the things that go into, yeah, this type of
Mm-hmm.
work.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Gabby,
Yeah.
I'm tossing it because I feel like I've been monopolizing the conversation, but you already knew Bodhi, so it was really my turn too. To get in
Well,
my questions.
well, we are coming up on the hour here. So if you, Ryu, if you have any final questions and that are burning to ask Bodhi before we start to wrap up, you can feel free. Otherwise, we can.
No, I just want to, I always tap into asking folks the big question. And again, you've already alluded to a lot of this through your conversation about what's your vision of where we're going. We're going as a civilization, and the key things that you think are going to get us there.
Yeah, there's so many different pathways that are possible. And I think it's ultimately up to us which ones we individually and collectively choose. And that's going to determine where we go. It's not, I don't think there's any set in stone necessarily, you know, way that it has to go or is going to go. Um, in many ways, it looks very grim,
Mm-hmm.
and we could bring up all the ways that it looks grim, but I'm not going to. It's just
Mm-hmm.
everyone knows.
Mm-hmm.
And then in many ways, there's, like you said, this upliftment of consciousness, this recognition of our interbeingness, of the importance of being loving and compassionate towards each other and ourselves, and this desire to reconnect to our roots, to nature. Um, and it's all happening simultaneously. It's really fascinating. It's really pivotal, unprecedented time on the planet. I really think so. This never been like this ever.
Right.
Um, yeah, so I don't know where it's going to go. I think we ultimately get to choose that, and I think it's important to be mindful of what we're choosing, right? Like, even just in our thinking, if we entrain to a negative or pessimistic or whatever, judgmental or divisive worldview, that is guiding us, right? Our thoughts are so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
The thoughts we have manifest and influence the physical world. So yeah, we choose the world that we want to create in our daily actions, um, through, yeah, practicing gentleness to yourself. Like, that is actually part of it, which it feels silly, but you know being gentle to yourself, um, treating yourself well, nourishing yourself as much as you can and your loved ones, trying to, you know serve a purpose and a mission that's, greater than just us. And not everyone can do that, but that could even look like just going and volunteering once a
Mm-hmm.
month, at a local organization or food bank or garden, So tapping into these these fields of hope and love and community, encouraging everyone to do that and building the ties, you know, be even building bridges to other people and other communities that might be different than ours, right? And at the heart of that is the recognition that no one is separate. There's no separation, right? So shifting towards a mythology, a worldview of interbeing.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, all these little things that we can do on a daily basis, I think, are cumulative, right? And slowly listening to our hearts, listening to our guts, being able to um, navigate, trusting ourselves enough to navigate and live life that way rather than with the thinking mind only. When these three centers are in coherence, right, there's a more uh, wise and informed, you know, way of moving and deciding. So, nurturing this listening to ourselves, this gentleness, and trusting our heart will push us forward slowly but surely towards that more beautiful, loving world, right? And also believing in miraculous things, like the worldview that is, um, that we grew up in Western society is that, you know, the only things that are real are what we can physically perceive. And even then, the framework and the lens through which we perceive those things is even skewed.
Mhm.
So, um, yeah, just recognizing that miracles and miraculous things are possible. We don't have to limit ourselves to the kind of Western reductionistic thinking.
Mhm.
And yeah, so these simple, everyday things that push everyone forward, right, towards that more beautiful world, I think is really what it's going to take.
Wonderful.
Well, I just want to thank you for being here and sharing your beautiful spirit and your beautiful heart. And I'm so looking forward to, getting a chance to engage with you more and, folks getting a chance to kind of learn from you through our program. And this has been such a full conversation. I mean, we could probably go on for the next couple hours, but we're gonna be mindful of that. And Gabby will cut me off. She'll pull me off the stage with the cane anyway. But this was a blessing. And I mean, the things that you're sharing are very much resonate and align with the spirit of what this podcast is about, and a lot of the things that we've been trying to support, with the center and the things that we're doing. And I just think that this collective space that's occurring right now, and the people that are finding one another, and the work that's collaboratively being done together, and it's just, I can just see like all these little magnets coming together. And a lot of the things that you were speaking about, they're like all the little magnets, so I actually was sitting here quite amazed, um and just feeling it directly in my heart space.
Mm,
um and I have a lot of gratitude to have you here today. And I also, while we were sitting here speaking with you, I was reflecting on the journey of how a lot of folks have just connected to us, and thinking about like how we connected to you. We knew Eric, and we saw, the partnership, and then we started observing the work that you were doing, and it's just so interesting how all of it just unfolds very effortlessly. And now here we are on a podcast.
It's a
And
big
that's
mycelial web, huh?
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's just all intentional. So again, I'm very grateful, so much gratitude to have you here today. And I'll turn it over to Gabby because I'll just keep talking because I'm in it's amazement mode right now.
Yeah, me
I'm
too.
always I'm always amazed. Always amazed.
I know it's wonderful seeing how these podcasts go and how they flow, each in their own way. And thank you so much, Bodhi, for being here. And I think this is going to be, I think, very healing and inspiring to our listeners. So we really appreciate you being here. And could you tell people where they can find you if they'd like to connect with you some more or learn about your projects and about Forested as well?
Yeah, thank you so much, Gabby. And I really appreciate both of you so much and the beautiful, open, heart centered space that I feel like I was ushered into talking with you all. So thank you so much. Um, Admit to being a little nervous at the beginning, you know. It's always kind of like that when you start public speaking at first, you know what I
Oh
mean? Like
yeah.
that
Oh
little,
yeah.
um, but yeah,
And
so I am on Instagram. I am on Instagram as Bodhi.Vasilopoulos. I have a Facebook where I post a lot of my events and workshops and retreats and courses. I'm also in the process of building a website, and it will be naturesloveandwisdom.com. And that's going to house and kind of host all of my events, all the things, I have going on, plus my community partners have going on. And yeah, so in general, I would say, getting with my email, getting on my Facebook, getting on my Instagram would be great. I'm not great about posting. I'm trying to be better about posting the things that I do because people, it helps. It helps, right? Um, but yeah, I have an upcoming retreat, later this summer. I would love more people to sign up for this amazing permaculture design course that we have going on here.
Mhm.
And, I offer regular workshops and foraging walks. And yeah, would love for people who are interested to tune in any of the ways. I'm good at staying in touch. So if you shoot me a message, I'll probably respond.
Wonderful. Thank you. We'll be sure to link all of that down in the show notes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us at State of Consciousness Podcast. We hope you enjoyed spending time with us and look forward to the next time. Until then, if you'd like to stay connected, you can feel free to reach out to us via our website at www.innersourcewellnesscenter.com. There you will find links to our podcasts, our Facebook page, and our YouTube channel, as well as our mailing list. Stay connected, stay positive. Namaste.